And one of the metaphors that keeps coming back to mind is like life is like fog, that you can cut through it, but you'll never really see where you're going. So I'm going to tell a little story about my dad. When I was about 9 years old, my father passed away. And my father, in a lot of ways in my life, is like this kind of ethereal soul that's like a guiding force in my life. He had this ability to communicate with other human beings in a way that made them feel really genuinely cared for. To the point where, well after his death, when I went back to Canada and talked to some of those folks, there are tears in their eyes based on the type of person that he was. Incredible human being. Also, very intelligent. He was a civil engineer in Pakistan, and upon moving to the States, he started a very successful real estate business, obviously with my mother, who is also a very intelligent person. And he was studying to be a lawyer. And he was studying day and night. And he would go to work as a real estate agent during the day. And then basically from like 6 to 10 p.m. at night, he and his friend would study for the bar exam. And he did all these classes and stuff. And, he's someone that spent, I think, about 10 years in the United States, moving away from Pakistan to get the experience of what it means to be American. And when he came back to Pakistan, Pakistan, which is the way that Pakistanis say it, he found my mother and he said, let's get married and let's do some stuff. And this to give you some perspective on the mindset of people in Pakistan is America is this place that's kind of up in the air. A lot of people blame America for a lot of things that they probably don't do, maybe do a little bit. But on the whole, it tends to be a place of great respect. And it tends to be a place that when a Pakistani goes there and comes back, gives them an ethos, an understanding that that person has experienced the next world, the frontier of humanity to some degree. And so this man that worked his absolute butt off, learning a lot and raising these two kids, me and my brother, and having a wife that's absolutely ambitious, worked his butt off. And where did he get the disease that caused his widowmaker heart attack in the middle of the night? His dad was passed away, I believe, or was in the hospital, and he had to go back to Pakistan to go and see his father. And him being the bold person that he is, he drove in Pakistan. And by the way, in Pakistan compared to Canada, the roads are on the opposite directions. So they have the British system. So they drive on the left-hand side of the road. And on top of that, the steering wheels are in a different direction. And what that meant was that he necessarily put himself in a circumstance where, and the traffic laws are fucking crazy. Like, no one obeys any traffic laws whatsoever. He basically ended up getting into a car accident. And before 1996, they did not test blood for blood transfusions. So he got into a pretty bad car wreck because obviously the cars aren't nearly as good there. And the blood transfusion gave him hepatitis. It manifested over a number of years, and I think it was 2003 that he passed away, or 2002 or something. By the time it had progressed to the point, there was a lot of experimental treatment for advanced stages of hepatitis. He had a aneurysm, which is essentially a blood clot that expanded right next to the heart and exploded, and he died that night. And that night, I remember we were at friend's house, and I'd seen the decline of my father over time. His skin got darker. He had less energy. He was still studying for a lot of exams and stuff, and doing a lot of work, but he just necessarily was in a difficult situation in life. And him at the friend's house was still that same person that really could hold a conversation in the middle of a room, kind of command attention by virtue of being an interesting speaker, but also by virtue of understanding the different audience that was there. But I remember it being really a lovely time, as per most of the time that we spent at family friend's house. And, he passed away that night. So the next day, I believe I was woken up by my mom, and she said, "Hey, your dad passed away." And she's someone that's been through a lot of stuff in life. So I guess she kind of took it in stride, but really, I mean, she was absolutely distraught. I could only imagine now being 28 years old, trying to understand the mentality of that. The days to come, I spent some time away from school, obviously, but when I did go back to school, my professor was like, my teacher, my fifth grade teacher, was like, "Dude, what happened? Like, where have you been?" And I very clearly said to her that my dad died, and she kind of looked at me a little appalled. I was very numb to it. It was really weird. I think I was in fifth grade. How old are you? Maybe like 9 or 10 or something like that. 9. And she kind of looked at me appalled, like, "Holy shit! Like this isn't affecting you? Like this is a big deal? Like whatever." And I don't think I ever really contextualized what it meant to lose a parent at 9 years old. I don't think you really can at that age. But what that meant to me was that my mom did a phenomenal job of not really changing up too much in my life. But we went to a lot of funerals and a lot of sad stuff. But I remember before my father passed away, and quite a few years before that, I was making a lot of metaphors about life. And one of the metaphors that keeps coming back to mind is like life is like fog, that you can cut through it, but you'll never really see where you're going. And I never knew the accuracy of that statement until it got affirmed by my mentors and the people that I look up to, in the sense that you can have a fairly clear vision of where you're going, but you really never know what's going to come on that path, because life is beautiful like that. It's random like that. And I remember sitting by myself quite a bit in those days and just looking at the other kids and trying to take myself out of the pocket of being a kid. And so it necessarily forced me to grow up pretty fast. And I spent a lot of time still talking to my friends and engaging with my friends and laughing and loving and learning. But I do recall that there was a bit of a shift in terms of me realizing that I had gone through something pretty substantial that the vast majority of kids will basically never go through. And I didn't have the never concept really down in my head, but I knew that most other people had fairly normal lives. And it didn't limit my communication, it actually increased it to some degree because I was more curious about their lives. I wanted to live vicariously through their stories. And over the course of my life, because of this loss, I've also engaged with a lot of older people to get that perspective that I would have from perhaps a parental figure. It's made a drastic difference. And to those of you that have lost someone recently, I'm sorry. It fucking sucks. And the older that you get, the worse it is because the more you understand what human life is worth. I think I kind of got lucky that my dad passed away when I was younger because I got to go into life basically having that as a constant almost. But for those of you that have lost someone recently or in your life, count your blessings for the people that are there right now. Count your blessings for all of the opportunities you have. Count your blessings for life necessarily deepening your your capacity for compassion. Every single one of these experiences in our lives, in my life, has been substantial in the amount that I'm able to care about other people. The reason that I'm making these videos to a great degree is because of the pain that I've gone through in life. And it really does make a difference to not only think about those experiences and value them, but to contextualize them and to use them, hopefully to understand humanity more. In general, what that meant though was that my mom had to work her absolute ass off to raise us. And I could go into that more and more, but I kind of just want to stick into the dad thing right now. Missing a father figure for most boys is going to make life a lot easier in some senses because it's my belief at least that they will not have as much sternness, and I think males in general from my experience impose a lot more of our ideals of the world onto our children. I think females do this too, so maybe that's a bullshit statement. But by virtue of not having a father, I had the opportunity consistently to basically forge my own mentality of what it means to be a man. And what that led to, this is probably one of the last things I'll talk about. What that led to was that me not having a parental figure telling me that you're a man now, well into my 20s, basically like to the age of 26, 25 or 20, no, 26 years old, I didn't even consider myself a man. And I had to give myself that. I saw Tony Robbins' documentary on Netflix, and he was talking to a guy. And he says that a man emerges when they heal the child. So if you have gone through something like this, and if you have not looked at it in the face and not acknowledged what it has done for you and what it means in your life, and you have not looked at that little kid and given them a hug and said, hey, I'm here for you and you've been through some shit and I still love you for who you are, the responsibility that you are capable of taking on is necessarily less. So think about it. Loss is a part of life. It's part of the fog of life. And it is part of the reason why life is interesting. In some ways, my concept of ethereal and my concept of kind of infinite and things moving on forever and the procession of life, the drop in the ocean concept of a soul, that all comes from these losses. So if you find someone that has lost in their life, observe them. If you are someone that has lost in your life, observe yourself and realize that by virtue of your loss, you have a deeper well of potential energy to draw from. That is at least my belief in it. This is not supposed to be really a sad story. It's just supposed to be a story. That's really what Turabify is about. Hopefully giving you guys a perspective on a life that might be of interest. Actualize your potential catalyst. This world needs you. And I'm here for you if you did lose someone. You got this. This too shall pass.